Welcome to It's a Matter of Music, a show that takes you down the roads traveled by creators and artists searching for the doors in and out of the music business. Hosted by songwriter, poet, and storyteller John Gray, and brought to you by It's a Matter of Music Publishing Company, where melodies are wrapped around life. Now, here's John.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this edition of Melodies Wrapped Around Life, brought to you by P-Head Productions. It's a Matter of Music Publishing Company, Parkview Senior Living, and Tennessee Studios with Jim and Ngay Wood. Today, my guest is someone who has impressed me for years. I guess ever since he was about 12, 14 years old, first time I saw him. He is a performer, he is an artist, he is a musician, he's a writer, he's a producer, he owns a studio, he's married to a beautiful lady who helps him in his life. Welcome, Jim Wood.
Well, thank you, John. I'm tickled to be here.
Well, we're just glad to have you. And you know, Jim has impressed me for years with his individual artistry, but then he had this little thing called the Tennessee Fiddle Orchestra where there were all these people involved. And then I go over to Trinity Lutheran Church one day, and he's in there performing a incredible piece of music that he wrote for them, and I'm going, this guy's just unbelievable.
Oh, you're gonna make me blush.
Well, what we want folks to know, a lot of folks might not know you, but a lot do. How did all this start, Jim?
Well, I love to tell this story. My father unfortunately passed away over 5 years ago, but my father was Jimmy Wood. He was in that category that I would call an exceptionally skilled amateur or like semi-professional musician. He's one of those guys who played better than a lot of professionals, but he always had a day job.
Right.
A family business was a funeral home and ambulance service in West Nashville. Had us on Wood Funeral Home. And, but he always played a lot, had all kinds of connections with the top studio guys, and he did gigs, and he won some state championships on guitar. He played Travis Style fingerstyle guitar, and then also he was an excellent kind of contest style Western swing rhythm guitarist. And so I don't remember not being around music.
Right.
My dad and some of his buddies, I grew up in the western edge of Williamson County, outside the Fairview community. So I grew up 6 miles from Williamson County and 6 miles from Dixon County. So this is the little Tri-County area there.
Right.
And that was an incredible hotbed of traditional music. Many of the early Opry performers were from that area. I was fortunate to grow up knowing those people.
Right.
I was born in '64, and those people wrote the book, so to speak. They laid down the rules for how this music is done. So I got to learn that music because, through my dad, I made connections with all those people in the community. And a lot of the fiddle stars were from the area where I grew up.
Right.
Early on, Arthur Smith, Howdy Forrester, Paul Warren. Local guys you wouldn't necessarily know a lot about. Vester Terman, Ike Kepley, Cleavert Warren, Mac Bennett. There were all these like really high quality fiddle players out there. And right where I grew up, they were from there. And then of course, Buddy Spiker, one of the top studio fiddle players in the history of Nashville, was just 5 or 6 minutes from my house. I grew up knowing Buddy. Before I started playing fiddle when I was 10, I would be like playing tag in the yard with his kids.
How much older is Buddy than you?
Dad was born in 41, Buddy's born in 38. So I was born in 64. So
Okay.
Buddy's kids and I was the same age as Buddy's kids.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but at any rate, I was running around, like I said, playing tag in the yard with his kids, and I got a fiddle, and it's like, well, Dad's like, well, Buddy plays fiddle, you ought to go hang out with him. So it was like, I figured it out pretty soon that as if I were wanting to play basketball and Michael Jordan lived in the neighborhood or something.
Right. So
Hoot Hester, another great studio player, became a very close friend of mine. I knew Hoot before I started playing fiddle.
Right.
Because of my association with Dad. The area where I grew up was an incredible hotbed of local music. And these guys, like studio legends and everything, are just getting together at the local grocery store on a Saturday night playing just because they like to play. And these people, so I learned that you can have a career in music and not be all cynical and burned out and everything. But these guys, they would be making records with stars and everything during the day during the week, and then they got together on the weekends and played.
It was the love of the music,
just
not the
loved-
love of the money
Exactly.
or
Or
the
notoriety or
or
anything.
anything.
I mean, Buddy had a barn loft, and I'd be down there as a kid hanging out with Johnny Gimble and Buddy Emmons and Buddy Spiker and Henry Strzelecki and Lenny Haight. These
No
guys,
wonder you're the way you
Bucky
are.
Barrett. I knew these guys when I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
And
so whereas most young kids at 10 years old, like me, would pick up a guitar, you didn't even consider that probably with all these fiddle players around you.
it's a funny thing, John. I say this, and it sounds like I'm joking, but I'm actually serious. People ask me why I chose the fiddle or whatnot, and it was two things. Like I said, I was raised around hearing fiddle music and everything.
Right.
With my dad playing with people and everything.
But your dad was a guitarist.
My dad played guitar and banjo.
Right.
Bluegrass style banjo. But I love the smell of the fiddle. I mean, to this day, I just like that varnish and the rosin and just the wood, and it's like I'll just
Because it's something that's close to your face while you're playing.
that and it's like it brings back all these memories.
Well, yeah, smell is a very, very important sense.
But I knew early on, it's like,
Yeah.
wow, that just smells so good. I love the way a fiddle smells. And I'm not the only fiddle player who said that. It sounds crazy, but I'm not the only one who said that. But
I'll have to ask my friend Becky Buller about that.
yeah, ask her if she likes the smell of fiddle. But then Bill Monroe's song Uncle Pen.
That'll do it.
That made me, it's like, dang, I want to do that. And for those people in the audience who know that song, if you don't, go listen to it.
Yeah, most everybody knows that one, I guess.
Yeah, and one of Bill's biggest hits, and that whole vibe of what he talks about in the lyrics about his Uncle Pen playing for the dance and being out in the country and everything. That's the way I was raised,
Yeah.
and that the fiddle and that music, and what how the music represented that lifestyle. I mean, I grew up. It's a funny thing. Being born in '64, I was in a generation where there were a lot of things in my life, living way out in the country, that was people my age now, I'm 56 now, were grown men. When I was a little kid, they were grown men during the Great Depression.
Right.
So it's like, I didn't necessarily have to do these things to survive, but like we hunted for a lot of what we ate, and like just because it was a lifestyle.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Country boy will survive.
that's right. And so that music, to me, it's more than just the tunes. It's more than just the melodies. It's more than just the experience of playing with other people. To me, it represents a whole way of
life.
Yeah, a way of life. And so the fiddle, to me, just encapsulated all those things into that experience.
Right.
And then all of the people that had such an incredibly positive impact on my life as I developed, and as a person, as a musician, everything. All these old guys that had been there and done that, and they knew something about life, and their music represented.
And everybody had a Barlow knife in their pocket.
Oh yeah,
at
myself
least.
included. Yeah.
Well, the first time I ran across Jim, the Hartman brothers, I think at one point they were called the Bald Eagles.
Bald Eagles, that's right.
And,
Clyde Hartman, that's right.
Wendell Hartman, who is a friend of mine, and I'm sure a friend of yours
That's
as
right,
well,
yes.
who is a keyboard player and owned a music store here for a while. He and his wife Debbie performed. That was one of the Hartman brothers, was his dad, and they had a fiddle competition in Wartrace, Tennessee.
Right, over there in the ball field. Yeah.
And you were there that year, I think at 14 maybe?
I think that's right, and I won.
And you won it.
that contest that year.
But I remember Buddy Spiker was there that
That's right.
weekend as well. And this little girl who was a little older than you named Wanda Vick.
Yeah.
And she was also a fiddle player and
amongst other things, she plays dobro, mandolin.
oh yeah,
guitar, banjo.
all of it.
Yeah.
But Jim at 14 years old won that thing.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't tell you this story, John, when you mentioned that contest to me before, but the very first contest I ever went to, before I ever had a fiddle, my dad and mom and I and W.T. Mangrum, this old guy that played with the dad,
Right.
we and his wife and his son Terry, we went down to the Meriwether Lewis State Park outside Hohenwald, Tennessee.
Uh-huh.
And they had a little fiddle contest. They had a low boy trailer there at the edge of the parking lot, and first prize was like a country ham or something like
All
that.
right.
And I was there, and Dad and WT somehow or another caught wind of this contest and said they'd go see what it is, And so we were there, and I was already thinking I wanted a fiddle. And so I was excited to be there and kind of see what it was about and everything. I remember standing at the edge of the parking lot, up close to the edge of the stage, and seeing diagonally across the parking lot, two guys walking, each with a guitar and a fiddle case in their hands. It's Clyde Hartman and Charlie Turner, his best friend from down in Columbia, Tennessee. So I didn't even own a fiddle at that point. And so Clyde and Charlie walked across the parking lot, and they came to get signed up in the contest. And so Clyde and Charlie were both incredible fiddle players. Like Dad, amateurs who played at a super high level.
Right.
You know, like really professional level players. And so they were both excellent guitarists, and they were both excellent fiddle players, and so they would accompany each other in the fiddle contest.
Right.
And so I met Clyde like before I even started playing the fiddle. And then later on, well, immediately became friends with him. I got a fiddle, and he was very instrumental in my developing as a musician. We'd go down to his place in Columbia and jam. And
Isn't it funny how all of this stuff weaves through your life? And,
Oh, yeah.
And we're here, how many years
well,
later?
that would have been
40 years
46
later?
years later. Yeah,
46 years
with the
later,
connection of
telling this story
about Wendell and everything.
about people that have been involved in both of our lives throughout this whole thing.
That's right.
After that, take us a little further down the road with Jim and how you progressed until you really chose. I'm sure at some point you had to make the decision, and it might have been young. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Well, you know, it's funny. I'll answer that question, and I'll back up a little bit and I'll tell something.
Okay.
You'll see why it's relevant. Okay, I made finally the decision, which I could actually call it the admission, not the decision. that I
like that.
That
Yeah.
I needed to play music full time for a living when I was in graduate school at Vanderbilt.
Okay.
So I was.
And what were you studying at
I was
Vanderbilt?
studying psychology of religion at Vanderbilt Divinity School.
Okay.
I was thinking I was going to get a advanced degree and teach at a college somewhere, something like that. I had never done anything but play music except for haul flowers at the funeral home, or like put up chairs like a haul of hay or something like that, mow yards.
Right.
But I'd never had a job other than playing music my whole life. I joined the Professional Musicians Union when I was 14. So I got my Zygmuntovich violin while I was in graduate school. And Samuel Zygmuntovich builds these violins that are the best in the world, you know. And undisputed, I mean, he's the modern.
He's the man.
He's the guy. And so I got my Zygmuntovich violin. I was in graduate school, and I was playing it, and it sounded so good. And it's like what am I thinking? What am I doing? Wasting my time at Vanderbilt? You know, I just need to be playing music.
How many times have you heard someone say, "I'm wasting my time at Vanderbilt"?
You know, it's like I already had a full career going.
Yeah.
I was having a hard time taking time to do the studies because,
Right.
I had already gone to Berklee College of Music, and I got a degree in English from Belmont. Mm-hmm. But so that's, like I said, more admission than decision. Was the culmination of a commitment to not so much even a lifestyle or art form. It's like all of that to a life of being a musician.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you something.
The ups and the downs.
Exactly. Yes. It's not all bed of roses, but
No.
But I'm excited when I get up in the morning to play, though. So not many people can say that about their jobs.
You're exactly correct.
But I'm going to tell you a story, John. You're a storyteller. Okay. This is a true story. Okay. One of the guys who really took me in, I used to stay with him a lot when I was a kid. He lived in Pinewood area outside Fairview, where I lived down there. His name was Benny Pewitt. And I lived on Pewitt Road. Mm-hmm. Benny's grandfather and Benny's grandfather's brother had, cut a path through the wilderness and created that road.
Right.
And, back late 1800s, something like that. Benny was born around the turn of the century. Okay, no, I'm taking it back, maybe 1910, 1912, something like that. But at any rate.
Way back there, anyway.
Yeah. So Benny, his daughter was divorced, and she and her two sons lived with Benny and his wife. And they lived in a house that was built around the first cabin that his granddad had built.
Right. Okay.
Okay, and so I spent a lot of time on that farm. And Benny was still working at Genesco in Nashville when I was a little kid. We'd come home, his daughter, Zelda, was a school teacher, and so I'd ride home from school with her
Right.
and go and be with them. And her son Byron and I would be messing around playing. And when Benny got home, we would go, feed the cows and stuff like that. And then, when the weather's nice, we'd sit on the front porch, and he would show me tunes. And John, I didn't even know the names of the strings. I didn't know which end to blow in. I was just using my ears, just trying
Right.
to figure out what he was doing. And I learned so many of the basic tunes that I play to this day from Benny sitting on that porch. He's playing a harmonica.
Right.
And we'd watch the sun go down, then we'd go in and have dinner and sit by the wood stove in the kitchen and play.
Play some more.
And play more, right? And so we would look on the front porch. There's this gorgeous maple tree at the edge of the front yard, and then behind that you see the barn and,
Right.
and whatnot, everything. So years later, in 1993, Benny was pretty far down the line with Parkinson's disease.
Right.
I used to go visit Benny regularly. It was this incredible, beautiful fall afternoon, sunny, 60 degrees, perfect day.
Right.
And that big maple tree was bright orange. Okay, bright orange.
Yeah.
And so I had known this story all along. That maple tree, the trunk of the thing was this big round, and it had this big, huge metal band on the ground around it with no seam in it. No seam in this band. So the whole deal was you pick the band up and you look, you can't find the seam. It's like, how did that get around that tree, It's like a magic trick with a 40,000-pound tree or something.
Right.
So what the deal is Benny's granddad had put that piece of metal there like in 1890 or something and planted that maple tree there so it would grow up through that big metal band.
And they probably had some flowers around it. It was probably to keep weeds from around the little thing or something.
I think it was just his idea of playing a joke on future generations.
Well, probably so.
So because it had no seam in it,
Right,
this
right.
metal band, and so we were talking about the tree. Of course, I knew the story, and Benny we were laughing, and I was leaning on the car, and he was leaning on the edge of the car, right in the middle of our talking about this old maple tree. He goes, I said, well, what is that tune? I said, that tune, that's my favorite fiddle tune, and my mind is gone. I can't even remember the name of that tune. And I said, well, that's Mississippi Sawyer. And he's like, oh, yeah. And so then we continued talking about the tree. But John, in a flash, okay, he went from talking to going diddly, 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 diddly. And then in a flash, I realized that when he played, and when he was humming diddly, 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 it sounded like the same inflection and everything when he talked. And then when he played the harmonica, it sounded like when he went diddly, diddly, diddly. And when I played the fiddle, it sounded like when he played the harmonica. It's like, John, there's a certain part of my fiddle style that's reflects how he talked. It's like,
Right.
and it was like this incredible epiphany to me. It's like, what makes music good? It's how it connects to our humanity. And Benny's voice was a reflection of his personality and his dad and his granddad. And it's like, and Benny, when he was an old man, he still had this twinkle in his eye. He was always looking to just he's this mischievous kind of
Yeah.
thing. And,
I like him already.
oh, he was awesome. He's on the cover, actually. Not on the cover, in one of the photos in liner notes of the album I did with John Hartford, The
Right.
Boys Have All Gone to Rest.
Yeah.
He's one of the guys whose photo is in the
Right.
liner notes of that album. But, so, Benny, you think about it, going all the way back to his granddad. It's like, what kind of a man has the wherewithal just to take a machete and just whack a place out of the wilderness to live, and his personality and his personal strength.
Oh, yeah.
And it's
Oh, yeah.
and he had the sense of humor that 100 years before, it's like, well, I'll just play a trick on people 100 years from now. They'll wonder. It's like, so there's so much humanity and so much power. And
But Jim, we forget as a society the strength and the dedication that those people who frontiered this country, what they had to have to get us to where we are right now.
Yeah,
It's
we
amazing
can't even
what they did
imagine like what kind of
and how they live.
yeah, what kind of challenges they had to meet on a daily basis and stuff. And this music, it's the music that they played.
Because that's what gave them joy.
Exactly
At
right.
the end of the day, that's one way they could tell a story and not be a storyteller is through their music. The pain, the joy, the understanding, the questions.
The community.
The community
Yeah.
is all right there in their music. And leaning up against a tree or in a tent or in a cave, they at the end of the day could find joy in picking that instrument up or using their voice
Right.
to share their life. And you were part of that. And what an incredible thing to happen to you as a young man in your life.
Absolutely. So I often say I was born exactly at the right place and the right time to do what it is.
To be Jim Wood.
To have the opportunities I had. And my dad was always incredibly supportive.
Oh, yeah.
He never pushed me. I mean, he just, I saw him having fun with it, and I saw all these older guys having fun. It's like, I want some of that.
Like you said earlier, Jim, and most people can't, it's hard in today's society to look at that this way. It was a way of life for them. It wasn't about creating something that would be on the radio. It wasn't about showing off for somebody. It was sharing joy with one another, sharing their life through the joy of playing an instrument.
Right.
And we don't have that. We don't find that in society anymore very much.
It's not very much. I mean, that's the reason we have to seek it out, and we have to foster that and nurture that. And that sense of community, has, I mean, heck, just last night we had a jam session at the Flat Creek Community Center.
And you've done that, you and Inge have done that for how long?
What,
20 years?
21 years? 21 years?
I know that you used to do something like that down in Normandy.
That's right, once a month down Normandy.
Down in
Music
Normandy
Night.
at the church
Yeah.
down there. And so
Standing room only at these places.
always,
Yeah.
always, because people are searching. Our souls are searching for that camaraderie and through the music. And you just can't find it. Can't find it on the radio anymore, and you can't find it in a lot of places. Big concerts, it's hard to find it there, but in these small gatherings like that is where the true soul of music is found.
Absolutely. Anybody who's any good knows what you just said, because they all started in some place like what we're describing.
Right.
It's like anybody any good knows what this is,
Right.
because this is like the soil out of which this stuff grows. I mean, these are the elements that go into making
Yeah.
good music.
That's like putting a seed in good soil. You were dropped in a rich environment, son.
I absolutely was.
Not
And,
everybody's that fortunate.
it's funny. I was born in a generation where it was just a golden era for the fiddle.
Right.
I had you mentioned Wanda. I had so many peers that were approximately my age. We would go to fiddle contests, John, and a fiddle contest, at some ball field in Anderson, Alabama or something on a Saturday might only pay 5 places, and there might be 8 or 10 fiddle players there, any of whom could win first place on any given day.
Right.
So, and these are people all about my age, who, when we had all these older guys like Clyde and Charlie and
Right.
to mentor us, J.T. Perkins, Jack Weeks, Frazier Moss, all these old guys that had been there and done that. And
They didn't care about entering or winning either one. They wanted to see the young folks play.
they were just into the music. And
Right.
it's like, and so some of my best friends to this day are some of the friends I made going to fiddle competitions when I was a kid.
So
And
how long were you involved in doing that?
I started with that when I was 12, 13, and I did that until 2000. So there were a bunch of championships. Dad was always my accompanist, and then later Inge would play tenor guitar with me, and Dad would play
Right.
6-string guitar,
Right.
which is like, for a fiddle contest, that's like having a great rhythm section.
That's like having a full orchestra.
I went to those competitions with a huge advantage over my competition because
of your accompaniment.
my accompaniment.
Yeah.
Of course, Dad and Inge and I would play with other people and everything too. It's all like a big fraternity, but on the other hand, I would be able to practice that material at home.
So you'd made your decision by that point. How did Jim survive from the point that you made the decision, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life because I love the way a fiddle smells, to ending up being able to fund yourself and live a normal life by creating enough income through music?
Well, there's an old saying in the
do
music.
that.
There's an old saying in the music business: you don't make one big check, you make a bunch of little ones.
Right.
So that meant, for myself, playing demos, writers' nights, later master sessions, the occasional television spot, teaching private students, writing for 4 different magazines. I have a series of 9 different instructional videos with Hal Leonard and Mel Bay. I'm in various books that those publishers have put out and everything. Right. Doing local gigs, playing. There was a time when I did convention work in Nashville, the Opryland Convention Center and Nashville Convention Center. Yeah, just playing.
All the avenues a musician can find.
Right, writing arrangements.
To hone his craft and make a living.
Right, studio, live, writing. Like I said, writing arrangements, orchestration stuff. Contracting, just all the things. The one thing that Buddy Spicher told me when I was a kid, and Buddy and everybody in his generation basically complained about how the music business had been taken over by a bunch of suits, they called them.
Right.
Okay, so Buddy said, I don't know why we're belly aching, because the musicians, at a certain point when this thing started making real money, they just abdicated and said, I just want to play music, and they didn't realize that it's the music business.
Right.
So if you're going to be a professional musician, you're an entrepreneur, you're a businessman, you're a small business owner, you have to know how to do your taxes, you have to, all the stuff that if you're going to have any other business, a business, a car or a auto repair place, whatever. You got to take care of business.
So basically, what you're saying is the guys who were belly aching about the suits are the ones who gave the business to the suits.
Exactly right. And then it got out of hand.
Can't control that suit, man.
Yeah, and then decisions are being made that didn't really have anything to do with music at a certain point.
Right.
And so the musicians who of my generation recognized that,
Okay.
And in a lot of ways it was easier for us because we learned from the generation before us who had done a lot of things very well, and we also saw things that they could have done better.
Right.
Not musically, but business-wise.
Right. Yes.
And so, it's not for everybody. Not everybody who's a great player needs to try to be a professional musician.
Right.
And there are people who are successful professional musicians who aren't necessarily the most talented players. They just know how to get
the
things
work
done. They know how to
get the job done.
Exactly.
Well, I tell you what we're going to do right now, Jim. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll get some instruments out, bring Ngay up here, and then we'll take it into the future a little bit after this quick commercial break. Folks, we'll be right back after these messages.
Now open in Tullahoma, Parkview Senior Living, a luxurious retirement community designed for active seniors. Choose an apartment home that's truly inspired and have peace of mind knowing our caring and friendly staff is dedicated to your safety and well-being. We offer an abundance of amenities and services, and you're not required to buy in or be locked into anything. Call us today to learn more about our new Tullahoma location.
Get your news first, fast, and free with your news leader on 6 every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday nights at 6, 8, and 10 p.m. Local weather, sports, community calendar events, and a comprehensive look at the latest news stories and news makers as only a video news broadcast can do. Get it first, fast, and free with News Leader on Channel 6, your local information network.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Melodies Wrapped Around Life, brought to you today by P-Head Productions. It's a matter of music publishing company, and Parkview Senior Living here in Tullahoma, and Tennessee Studios with Jim and Ngay Wood, and that is because Jim and Ngay Wood are on stage with us today. And Jim, we've been visiting, and you have brought the beauty to sit with the beast.
I'm very lucky that way.
You're very. We both married way above our status, buddy. Above our training. So, we're going to talk about where we were, Jim, at the early age and moving forward, and now we're talking a little bit about what's happened after your youth, and of course Inge's been part of that in her collaboration with you.
I think it'd be fun to hear Inge say a word about why she got interested in playing this kind of
That'd be
music.
great.
It goes right along with what we're talking
That's
about.
it. So what made you?
Well, just like
Inge?
I think, just like everybody else, you see all these people having fun, and the magic about it to me was the ability of playing without music, sheet music. I had some piano training when I was a youth, and I could not play without a piece of paper in front of me. And I would go to these fiddle festivals that Jim and his dad would go to on the weekends. And everybody would just pull out fiddles, banjos, mandolins, guitars, and would just start playing. They didn't even know what songs they were going to do. Everybody could just join.
Didn't make any difference.
And I just wanted to know, it's like, how do they do that? It was just like magic. And his dad was so encouraging. He said, well, you just learn one chord, you learn the next, and you learn the next, and you just put them all together, and anybody can do that. And he was so encouraging. I thank him so much for kind of encouraging me to do that. And I like to, try to pass that on to everybody that I can, students or music enthusiasts that I know in the communities. Like, anybody can put 3 chords together and start. Most songs are on a very basic level,
Sure.
3 chords.
Sure.
And the odd chord, the minor chord.
The off chords, yeah.
The off chord.
Yeah.
And it can be such a amazing experience to do this organically with people,
Right,
and
right.
not from. Don't get me wrong. I like sheet music.
So you were trained classically
a little bit,
on
yes,
the piano?
yes.
Okay.
Not
Do you
to advance, but
do you still play the keyboard
a
much?
little bit.
Little
yes,
bit?
Yes. And I'm a big proponent of reading music.
Certainly.
I like that aspect of things, but it was like half of the puzzle as I was learning music in that way, and I didn't feel like I was really participating in any music creatively. It was more like a technique, like a technician.
Well, to me, that is sort of like you are bonding with the music instead of with the instrument.
yeah.
You're not allowing you and the instrument to have a relationship. There's a person with a pen and a piece of paper that are in between you and the music.
Yeah, that's what's so remarkable about some classical musicians. They can transcend that.
Right.
Yeah.
When you
The
hear
really
ones,
great ones
when you
can.
hear the great ones, they transcend all that. But it's the elite ones that are able to do that.
Right, right. So we'll travel forward a little bit, and I want to say something about this because I know I enjoyed it very much. We even played some of the fiddle orchestra video on the show a couple of weeks ago, getting ready for your visit to Tullahoma Living. Tell us how did that evolve out of the stuff done in Flat Creek and down in Normandy? How did that evolve?
Going back to Buddy Spiker.
Right.
Buddy Spiker made his reputation for being the ultimate harmony fiddle player. So he was lots of times he was the guy he was the second fiddle, which a lot of people don't realize. The second fiddle is harder.
That's
than
a hard fiddle to play.
Yeah, second fiddle is harder than first fiddle most of the time. So I loved. It was just enchanting to me always the sound of fiddles together.
Right. Twin fiddles is just
it's
incredible.
nothing like it. So then you multiply that by 70 and you get an orchestra. It's like, and so I devised a system which is now at the core of my new business, Jim Wood Online Acoustic Music Academy, that I've started with my friend Mike Smart. A system whereby people can play the most elemental form of a tune, and then there's a little bit a little higher level degree of difficulty, and another level, and it goes through ascending levels of degree of difficulty, but everybody can play those things together.
Right.
So the one thing that's really unique about the Tennessee Fiddle Orchestra, Inge and I did that once a week with probably 6 concerts a year, 5 or 6 concerts a year for 7 years. And we had right at 160 people come to the orchestra.
Right.
Our largest concert at Motlow College here, we had 74 people in the orchestra for one performance.
Wow.
And that was the biggest we were. Standing room only audience. I mean, it's like such good energy. and it was about getting people to play together.
Right.
So I can't say that the orchestra directly grew out of the Flat Creek jams and stuff, but it grew out of a similar mindset of just trying to get people to be able to play together.
Yeah.
Play together. Yeah.
And I know what I thought was so great about it. I grew up as a kid down the street from Harry Hill.
Yeah.
And you would see a dad learning to play with their child,
Oh, absolutely.
learning to play.
Harry and
this
Sarah,
is something
yeah.
they could do together, that they both could be at sort of the same level in experience and share together in a way that you really can't do in other forms of activity together.
That's right. You can't learn soccer together like that or something.
No.
You know. And so there was a lot of that.
Yeah.
Harry and Sarah were, because Harry was very instrumental in the success of the orchestra with his support. He was
Right.
working with the newspaper
Sure.
and everything.
Sure.
And the style of music lends itself for that kind of arranging. I mean, there's the Tennessee Fiddle Orchestra, not the Tennessee Violin Orchestra. I mean, it was fiddle music. It was
Right, and I asked Jim the other day when we were doing the Living Show, I said, Jim, what is the difference between a fiddle and a violin? You know, a guitar player will set the guitar up a certain way to get a certain sound.
Right.
And Jim told me very quickly and very emphatically, the instrument's the same, it's all about the player.
Yeah, it's what's in your mind and what's in your hands and
Right.
stuff, you know. So, I mean, it's just like I heard a video the other day of Stevie Ray Vaughan playing a solo piece with a flat top.
Yes.
Okay? I was blown away. I'd never heard Stevie Ray Vaughan play like that.
Right.
Just sitting in a room with a little mic and a flat top acoustic guitar.
Right.
It was Stevie Ray Vaughan that was great. It wasn't whether he was playing a Strat or a flat top or whatnot. You know?
Right. Oh, for sure.
You know, and so it's what the musician brings to the equation.
Brings the equation. That's
Yeah.
right. Well, you have a new project, and we want to discuss that. But first, I want to hear just a little touch of that good old music. we've
Sure,
been talking
absolutely.
about.
Let's. We're talking about my dad,
Right.
and when I told Dad that I wanted to get a fiddle, he didn't waste too much time before he found me a fiddle. Okay, and so he was home early from work one day when I got home from school.
Right.
He had a fiddle there. So, of course, I was very excited, and of course, I didn't know anything. And he didn't play fiddle, but because he played banjo and guitar, he knew melodies. So kind of pluck on the fiddle. He figured out how to play Soldier's Joy on the fiddle and taught it to me, and that's the first tune that I learned. And I learned
That's
it.
outstanding.
I learned it like this. I'll play it for you one time, the way I learned it from Dad.
Okay.
The first day I got a fiddle. And then I'll go into a more fleshed out version, but you'll hear the basic tune in there,
Right.
the way I learned it from my dad when I was 10. Okay. Okay?
Outstanding.
Thank you.
Let me tell you what, folks. I was sitting right here, right then, and I was watching Jim play. And Jim closed his eyes, and in my mind, I could see you seeing every one of those fiddle players on that porch. I closed my eyes and I saw some of those fiddle players on that porch that we talked about earlier. They never leave you, do they?
They don't.
They're part of you.
Almost makes me cry thinking about it. That's exactly right.
And I could tell when you closed your. Oh, look at me! I'm about to cry. This is not a. This is supposed to be a happy show, folks, and it is a happy show because there's such things as tears of joy.
That's right.
Just outstanding.
That's what this music means to me. It's the first tune I ever learned. I never get tired of playing that tune because it brings back all those great memories.
How can you?
And you know what? It's neat. Okay, I learned that from my dad when I was 10 in Fairview, Tennessee. A few years ago, Inge and I hosted a Danish music and dance group in Flat Creek, and they came and did a performance, and so some of the Danes could speak English passably well, and but the musicians, none of them really spoke English very well. So we had a party and a jam session and everything. So they had the guitar and accordion, and what all did they have? I don't remember. I remember guitar and accordion, flute or something. But at any rate, so we're going to play music. And so we pretty quickly figured out that we could all play Soldier's Joy together. And they came from Denmark, and then here we are just sawing away playing Soldier's Joy.
Right.
And you think about it, a friend of mine actually from Denmark, his name is Finn Thompson, he told me one time, I didn't do the research on this, but he related this to me, that he read one time that there were references to that particular tune in Norse literature from 800 years ago. Okay? So you think about it, John. You go back to a place and a time where we have practically nothing in common in terms of the trappings or facade of civilization. It's like their whole cosmology,
right?
You know, weather, philosophy, culture, like diet. I mean, everything is different, right? From ours. But here we are, it's like it just breaks down the walls of time, and we go, and we're
in
like
Flat Creek, Tennessee.
Yeah, we're all connected.
Playing Soldier's Joy.
Exactly. And
you have another tune picked out for us?
Sure.
A little short one here, whatever you want, because I want to make sure we have enough time to discuss your new project, because I have some things I'd like to say about that.
So, do you feel like you're singing Fiddler's Dream? I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you remember the words? Is that okay? So my friend John Hartford.
What a performer.
Yeah, he was
what
awesome.
A musician.
An awesome artist. He was an artist, you know.
He made a flat board laying on the floor into an instrument.
Absolutely. He was an incredible artist, and he became like a second father to me. We were incredibly close, and not just musically. I mean, we just spent so much time together and had.
I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah, totally.
Good for you. That had to be wonderful.
Yeah, he was like a second dad to me. I mean, he was like family to me. I'd be with him on Christmas and stuff. I mean, he was like the guy that had the biggest influence on my development, probably as a person, beyond my immediate family and stuff. And John.
He did a good job.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, John and I had a great relationship, and one of the things we enjoyed doing. John described himself as a closet librarian. So I
love it.
So we both had this kind of tune collector, curator kind of. We had that bent, both of us. So one of the things we would do is go and hang out with the old guys who were, you know, had played on the Opry in the.
Right.
In the 30s and 40s and stuff, and we would go and learn tunes from them and that kind of thing. And so that was one of the many things that John and I did, but that was an important part of our relationship, was traveling around like that to visit with old guys. And so John passed away in 2001, and after a long illness. And I can't say that I was devastated because, you know, we all saw it coming and everything. But I can say that not a day's gone by since he passed away that I haven't missed him.
Right.
And he had been dead about 3 years. And I was asleep, and I had this dream. John, it's one of those dreams that was like more real than seeing you right here right now.
Understand.
And I had this dream, and he came to me in the dream. He said, "Here, I've written this tune for you as a gift." He said, "I want you to have this tune." And he played the tune on the banjo, And in the dream, I was so happy. I was like crying. I was so happy to see
Right.
him, and I was elated, you know. And so he played the tune, and then I woke up. And it's in the middle of the night, right? So I ran in the den, and I had a little cassette recorder, grabbed a guitar, hummed the tune, played the chords like it was in the dream, recorded it, and then went back to bed.
Right.
So I got up in the morning to discover that the tune was basically written. I mean, it was
There it
done
was,
in my
yeah,
sleep.
right.
You know, I guess, you know, you can speculate as to whether I wrote it or John wrote it and gave it to me or whatever.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. And so, went back and added lyrics. And so it's kind of the story of me and John
Outstanding.
going and doing our thing together. It's called Fiddler's Dream.
All right.
I'm very lucky to have, I can't sing my way out of a wet paper bag, so I'm very lucky to have a good...
She sure can.
Yeah, Inge to sing for me. 1, 2, 1.
We spent many a day like kids at play with fiddles under a tree, and many a night in fanciful flight, playing Grey Eagle again. What's gone, it's gone, and it's not coming back, but it's more than a memory. It's and it breathes when the bow's under strings and gently touches the ear. We saw the tunes of the old string bands, and we studied the old time way, and we rambled down old gravel road to find another song to play. What's gone, it's gone, and it's not coming back. That's why I sing this song. He played it in a dream for me and said, pass the memory on. It's not written down and it can't be found on the big time radio. Like a stream that flows through the hands and souls from where we really never know. What's gone, it's gone, and it's not coming back. Yet we often remember our friends whose souls move on to another day to find where it all begins.
Outstanding.
Thank you, John.
You know, I could almost hear Hartford's feet on the board in that song.
You know, it's funny. It sounds like the melody sounds like a melody he would have written, doesn't
Yes.
it?
Yeah.
It has that Hartford quality to it.
Yes.
So
What a wonderful story, Jim.
yeah, it's a very emotional story for me because, like I said, we were so close, and he had such a profound impact on my life, all in a positive way. So it's such a gift to have a song like that, you know.
You know, we discussed this the other day, and after this interview right here, I feel more like this than I did then. There's a movie that I watched years ago called The Songcatcher.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And you've seen that movie, and it's about a lady back in the day who goes up in the mountains and retrieves.
Well, like I said, in the 30s or
yes,
30s?
and
Yeah.
she works for a university, and she's chronicling these songs. And you're the closest thing to a song catcher that I've ever met in my life, and I appreciate you for what you've done. And that brings me to the point of your new project, where you have had the opportunity with Middle Tennessee State University.
That's correct, yes. Center for Popular Music.
Study
yeah.
old manuscripts.
That's right. There's the Center for Popular Music at MTSU, in concert with the American Antiquarian Society, digitized, I don't know how many books there were altogether, these old unpublished manuscripts. The tunes, the books that were relevant to me were ones that had fiddle music in them.
Right.
And I went through 14 different volumes. These are handwritten, never been published. I suppose, I never found out, but I suppose they came from estates, you know, the families and
Right,
whatnot. I'm not
right.
sure. At any rate,
Age-wise on these, how?
1730 to 1910.
1730.
1730 to
1910.
1910. Right. And it was like an archaeology dig, you know.
For a closet librarian.
That's right, yeah.
You've taken over John's role, haven't you?
I have, yes. We shared that in common, so I carried the torch. But yeah, it was like, John, I felt like I got to know the artists who wrote these things down.
Right.
You know, the personality of their calligraphy, and it's like,
Yeah, handwriting, because people don't handwrite anymore. How wonderful is that, just
Yeah.
to have that in front of you?
yeah, you know that some of them were writing with quills or whatnot, and it's
My
like,
gosh.
and so, you know, it was interesting. I read through 1,654 tunes that wound up becoming the new album called Rural Felicity, that has 48 tunes on it altogether.
Right.
So I culled that 1654 down to 48. So, but the thing is, I expected to find a bunch of hidden gems in there. You know, I didn't really. A handful, but out of 1,654 tunes, you would think there would be like all these hidden gems. What's even more interesting is that the tunes that stood out from those manuscripts are the ones we still play today. It's like in some kind of musical Darwinism, the strong ones survive.
Right,
you know?
right.
And but there's a way that you go back in time and you see how that some of these standard tunes have evolved, and see how, and like some of these tunes out of the 14 volumes, there would be sometimes one of those tunes might be in 7 or 8 of the volumes. But they would be popular, and that most of these volumes I think came from Mid-Atlantic, Pennsylvania, Virginia, that kind of area over there. So maybe some New England, but I think it was mainly more Mid-Atlantic.
Well, what a wonderful opportunity.
It was, you know, yeah, to get paid. Talking about a career, like to get paid to do something that I would just totally do because I love it. And so.
How about me? I don't have the knowledge.
So, but it was really cool to see how these tunes tell the story of a significant part of our nation's history.
Right.
You know? Now because there was somewhat regional, there was not the whole black experience. The African American experience in the Deep South was missing from these manuscripts.
Right.
And there are other things like the German influence was there a little bit, the French influence was there. So the other big ingredient in American fiddle music, you know, the black experience was not there, because these tunes were either tunes that were played in the British Isles or France or Germany or something, or were written by people who were descendants, immigrants or whatnot.
Sure.
So I can't say for certain what the exact history of any particular tune is, but the bottom line is it's like the primordial stuff out of which American fiddle music grew up was in those books. And
how incredible for you to be able to do that, and that's something. Is there a way that fans or people who are fans of music and also Jim Wood, is there a way for someone to get this? Is it out yet? Is it published yet?
It has been released. It's available on all the digital formats like Spotify and whatnot and everything. As we speak, we're in the process of putting a new website together ourselves. We have a webmaster at jimwoodmusic.net, and that they'll be available on that within probably 3 weeks. They're available on Spring-Fed Records, their website. So they are.
So you'll
available.
be able to buy. You'll be able to get something you can hold. I like to have stuff.
I'm the same way.
I like to have stuff you can hold and put on a shelf and say, when I want this, here it is.
This is a very beautiful artwork.
Yeah, John Fabke killed it on the artwork on this.
Outstanding.
He took one of the books from the collection that had this really marbled, beautiful.
Right.
And he
ancient looking.
Yeah, very old, and he created. It's just one of the best I've ever seen. So you open it, it looks like one of the old books. You open it, it has music on the inside and everything.
That's great.
It has liner notes by myself and Chris Gertson, who's a famous scholar, author, college professor, talking about the histories of the tunes and that kind of stuff. So it has a little booklet that comes with it that elaborates on the history of, things in general and the tunes in particular.
Okay, so that sort of brings us up to date on the history of Jim Wood, pretty much. Except for one thing in Engay, except for one thing. If someone wanted to have consultation with you as far as making a record or learning some lessons or whatever it is that you have to teach, which is much, how do they get in touch with you to start that conversation, to come to your studio?
Well,
I'm
pretty easy to find. Jim at jimwoodmusic.net.
That's pretty easy.
Yeah, Jim. Although you have to make sure and get the .net right part, because if you go to Jim at jimwoodmusic.com, it's some guy who plays telly down in Georgia.
And no S on the wood.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
No
people just want that S to be on the
no
wood.
S.
Yeah.
Jim Wood, Engay, my friend.
I've enjoyed it, John.
Thank you so very much for coming and spending this time with us. And always it's a pleasure to have Engay with you as well. How extremely talented you two people are.
Well, thank you.
How much of a pleasure it's been for me to sit here with you and find out that little piece of song catcher that I am has found out the story behind Jim Wood.
Well, thank you very much.
It's an incredible story, and I hope all of our folks out there enjoy this, and remember that we do this not all the time, but when there's someone that I think I want to spend time with, and where you can learn not only about the music business that's on TV and on the radio and all this, but the true business of music, and that's the business of life.
That's right.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you for having us. We've enjoyed it tremendously.
Okay. And you folks out there, thank you for being with us. We'll see you next time on Melodies Wrapped Around Life.
For information regarding It's a Matter of Music's catalog and songs written by John Gray, contact John at 931-581-5238 or John Gray at pheadtv.com.